A thin sliver of dawn clung to the eastern sky when Theon Greyjoy guided his courser through the open gates of Riverrun. The fortress was stirring but not yet alive. Orange torch flames guttered in iron brackets, and the weirwood leaves along the river curtain walls lifted and rattled in a breeze that smelled of mud and distant rain. On most mornings Theon greeted the day with roguish ease, yet now an unspoken weight clung to him like a sodden cloak. Robb Stark awaited him in the east gallery above the quiet water court, and every hoof-clop echoed the same question in Theon's mind. Am I Ironborn or wolf? He swung from the saddle, handed the reins to a drowsy groom, and climbed the spiraling steps 2 at a time. Robb stood alone beside an embrasure, broad shoulders tense beneath a woolen surcoat stitched with the snarling direwolf. Night's tangle of auburn hair framed eyes gone flinty with battle work and sleepless vigil. Maps lay unrolled on a cedar table, tattered depictions of rivers, ridges, and strongholds now spattered with fresh inks of movement and loss. You summoned me at first light, Theon began, forcing a swagger he no longer felt. Dare I guess why? Robb answered not with words but with a silent turn of parchment toward the torchlight. Scrawled in Maester Vyman's quick hand were 3 small lines. Renly Baratheon marches from Bitterbridge, 20,000 cavalry. Stormlander levies swell his host daily. Highgarden banners ride at his flanks. Below sat half a dozen wax seals. Tyrell Lily, Penrose Tower, Tarth Starfish, each a menacing petal around Renly's golden stag. Little brother crowns himself, Theon murmured, and the realm births a new war. Robb's jaw tightened. Stannis means to break him, but Renly will not wait. If the South unites behind that stag, my war with the Lannisters grows twice as hard. And you want the Kraken in the Trident, Theon said, tasting salt on his tongue though he stood leagues from the sea. I want you in the Trident, Robb corrected. Your father's longships are steel we cannot match. Your uncle Victarion grips commands as if born with an axe for a hand. If Balon strikes the western coast while we fight lions and stags, we are doomed. Then you'd have me sail home, bow before my father, and beg for his allegiance? Not beg, said Robb. Demand as a son who once was heir, and prove you mean to stand with the North. The notion set ice in Theon's belly. 10 years a hostage, yet Riverrun's tower halls felt more home to him than Lord Balon's stone-cold keep. Still, his heart hammered at the thought of the sea, gull cry and salt spray and the Iron Victory cutting white foam beneath a cloud-tossed sky. Robb laid a hand on Theon's shoulder. I have named you my brother before the world. Win your father's fleet, Theon, and your name will ring louder than any maester's bells. You will break Renly before Renly breaks Stannis, and the direwolf will howl unchallenged. Theon searched Robb's eyes, saw trust and the shade of pleading neither man would ever confess aloud. His own laughter came brittle in his throat. Very well, your grace. Send me to Pike. I'll return with a thundering host, or on Renly's spear point. A gust rattled the gallery shutters, and with it drifted the first gray hush of dawn. The ride northward to Seaguard took 3 long days. Across mist-hung fields Theon felt the pulse of war surge like thunderous surf. Caravans of footmen crossed his path. River lords bearing ox carts piled with grain, smiths dragging glowing forges behind lumbering mules, girls in patched cloaks who whistled bawdy songs about the young wolf and his pretty captive queen. They tipped imaginary caps when Theon's cloak half revealed the Kraken badge, then whispered once he passed. Ironmen, Reavers, lock your daughters. At the Twins, the Fry tollkeepers opened the timber causeway at Robert Frey's writ, though their eyes glimmered with suspicion. Fry knights had little love for a Kraken in wolf's clothing. By dusk of the 8th day Theon reached Seaguard port. There, gulls wheeled above tar-streaked masts while waves slapped barnacled pilings in steady, patient rhythm. He boarded a lean, sea-worn cog bound for Lordsport, the fastest ship Lord Mal Lister could spare, and watched the river mouth recede into twilight, feeling each roll of brine pull him backward through years. You return at last, the sea whispered. A prodigal son come home to claim the spray. Theon had no answer, only clenched fists and a restless heart. He slept little, haunted by dreams of churning tides, his father's stony glare, and Robb's hopeful eyes. Storm clouds broke over Pike as the Sea Swift threaded the jagged teeth of Lordsport Harbor. Theon stood at the prow, sodden hair whipping across his brow, salt water stinging his lips. Beyond the harbor chain, ancient black basalt towers lifted like the bones of drowned giants. Waves exploded against craggy pillars of stone, flinging white spume 40 feet into the air. For a heartbeat he was 7 again, clutching his mother's skirts as the sea wind scoured his cheeks raw. An escort of longships flanked the cog's sleek, low-slung vessels with curved iron rams and sails dyed red as sunset. Greyjoy banners flew lax in the wet gusts, golden kraken writhing upon sable cloth. On the piers, Ironborn thronged in rust-flecked mail, axes thrust high, voices braiding in harsh, guttural cheers at the sight of Balon's emissary, though whether to honor or harry him, Theon could not yet say. Yara awaited him at the foot of the gangplank, rain streaming from the raven-black hair cropped daringly short at her neck. She looked older than he recalled, more sinew, more clear wrath in the eyes. But the crooked grin was the same their nursemaid once called the shark's smile. "My little brother returns," she said over the roar of wind. Another Stark pup sent south by his master. He forced a grin to match hers. "North," he corrected. "I come from Riverrun, not Winterfell. Robb rides the Riverlands now." "Robb rides high, so you cling to his saddle and call yourself Kraken," Yara mocked. "Tell me why you come crawling home." "Word from Lannisport says the Kraken means to rise, yet I find the wolf's pet upon our docks." Theon drew a breath thick with brine. "I come to speak with father." "Oh, you'll speak," she promised, turning on her heel. "Whether he listens, that is the Saltwife's wager." The cliff paths to Pike Central Keep were slick with sea spray and moss. Twice Theon nearly slipped, and each stumble drew snorts from the Ironborn guards who tramped behind him. Hemp bridges hung between towers, swaying like drunken dancers above white-capped chasms. One bridge lacked half its planks, forcing visitors to step wide across open air. Yara laughed when Theon hesitated, then strode across with the surety of a gull. "Do I still belong here?" he wondered, heart rattling in his chest. Inside the great keep the air was warmer but smelled of damp slate and old oil. Torches cast flickering pools over tall archways and the faded banners of dead Greyjoy kings. Balon waited in the seastone chair, gaunt, wind-scarred, a russet mantle clutched at his shoulders. Deep lines bracketed his mouth, and his eyes burned with the clipped light of a man whose body failed to match his will. Sea salt glimmered in his beard like hoarfrost. He said nothing as Theon approached, only drummed skeletal fingers on the arm of the throne. Theon knelt on one knee but did not bow his head. Ironborn bent the knee to no shoreborn king, not even to their own. 10 years you were whelped by the wolves," Balon rasped. "The North bled my son into a pale, pliant creature of fur and river water. Do you return iron, or do you return rust?" "I return your blood," said Theon. "I return to prove my worth and claim my place." "Claim?" Balon snorted. "No son of mine begs another man's leave to stand." "I beg no leave," Theon shot back, voice steady though the hall prickled with murmurs from captains arrayed along the walls. Victarion in soot-black plate, shield across his knees. Roderick Harlaw fingering braided beard. Stout Gerold Goodbrother with sea-cold eyes fixed upon Theon's every motion. "I come with a plan that will raise our name higher than any raid on Greenhand Coves. I offer victory that echoes Aegon's." Balon's lips thinned. "Speak." Theon rose. "Renly Baratheon marches for power with Tyrell gold and Stormlander steel. The South bends knee to him because they believe him unassailable on land. But his strength flows through narrow coastal roads, provisions, grain, arms. If the Iron Fleet strikes first, we choke Renly's host, starve his green knights, bleed the Tyrell bloom to rot. King Stannis will finish what hunger and fear begins. When Renly falls, the realm fractures and our waves rush in." A ripple of intrigue cut through the room. Victarion leaned forward. "The young wolf fights Lannister lions. Why aid the trout and wolf by breaking a stag?" Because our islands cannot stand alone against every lion, stag, and dragon the world may cough up, Theon answered. Help Robb Stark's cause and the North remains our staunch ally. Then we hold the western coast and the Sunset Sea. Toll every Lannister ship from Fair Isle to the Arbor, grow richer than high-tide dreams, and leave the mainland kings to gnaw each other to bone. And when the North tires of paying tolls? Roderick Harlaw asked softly. They will pay, Theon said, for a peace they cannot enforce except at ruinous cost. Yara's laugh cracked through the hall. Hear him, father. He weaves tidy nets of words. But can he lead Ironborn to war? A boy who watched wolves feast while the sea starved. Theon bristled. I will lead from the prow. First ashore, last to leave. Put me at the Sea Song's helm and see if Renly's green knights do not scream at kraken claws. Balon observed the fire's dance in his son's eyes. Long heartbeats passed before the king spoke. Victarion, his brother rose, plate creaking. Aye, your grace. Gather the captains at nightfall in the drowned chapel. We weigh this plan upon the salt throne. Theon exhaled only when Victarion nodded acceptance. Balon's gaze shifted back, appraising. Blood remembers the sea, he said at last. Prove the sea remembers you, and I may yet call you son. Salt torches hissed around the chapel's sunken ring. Seawater pooled ankle-deep over flagstones carved with ancient kraken runes. Firelight bent on damp walls, casting monstrous, writhing shapes that seemed alive to every word. Captains gathered in a rough circle, their mail clinking, salt-reeking cloaks dripping brine. Priest King Aaron Damphair hovered near a stone font, murky eyes gleaming like tide pools at moonrise. Balon sat on a weathered oaken stool in the center, cloak spread over his knees like storm-torn sails. He motioned for Theon to speak, and the hall quieted under the waves' far thunder. Theon unfurled parchment, crudely sketched coastlines of Cape Wrath, Shipbreaker Bay, and the narrow fingers of Dornish marches. He spoke of tides, shoals, hidden reefs gleaned from childhood memory and river-runs wore maps. He named minor stormland lords whose ports lay undefended while Renly's muster drained their levies. He spoke of raiding granaries near Summerhall, burning ferry lines at Haystack Hall, and planting terror along the Rainwood that would force Renly to scatter outriders in every direction. And when his lines thin, Theon concluded, the Iron Fleet convenes at Massey's Hook, strikes the grain barges and supply cogs that flow from Old Oak and High Garden. No bread, no oats, no army. It's that simple. Stannis' fury will meet starved knights too weak to lift their lances. Murmurs rose, some approving, others skeptical. Aaron Damphair lifted water-dripping hands. The drowned god reviles kneeling to Greenland's kings. Why war for Stark or Stannis? We are Ironborn. We take what we will. We are Ironborn, Theon retorted, which means we seize victory through cunning. Not even the Kraken can writhe free when 5 kings snare him. Choose the battle that bleeds them for us. Gerold Goodbrother spat seawater at his feet. I say we raid the Reach. Fat fields, fat lords, fat daughters. Leave Renly and Stannis to slit each other's throats while we feast. Feasting wins no crowns, Theon replied, but the realm will remember which banner toppled Renly Baratheon. For a generation lords will flinch at the Kraken, fearing famine and ash at its wake. That fear is worth 10,000 goats from Tumbleton. Silence fell as Victarion studied the map. Finally, he thrust an iron gauntlet toward a marked inlet. Sail here to Griffin's Roost, he grunted. A bold strike under Renly's nose. Burn his lordling's castle. Leave no hall standing. A low growl of approval rippled around the ring. Balon lifted his chin, eyes on his son. This fleet you would command, what is its heart? The Iron Victory, Black Wind, Hammerhorn, 22 longships swift enough to outrun any Drummond, Theon said. My sister commands the Black Wind. She will rain arrows on Renly's supply columns. Victarion leads the main strength. Yara cut him off. We'll take the first risk. Sail the Sea Song through the Shipbreaker shallows on a moonless tide. torch the granaries at Rain House. Theon met her shark grin with wolf steel. "I'll do it." Balon stood. "The captains have heard. At dawn they cast driftwood crowns upon the sea. The god will choose which plan stands." Ironborn bowed heads as Aaron began the drowning prayer, chanting in rasping rhythm. Cold water trickled over Theon's cheeks, and for one dizzying breath he was again a boy submerged beneath turbulent surf, lungs aflame, father's hard hands holding him down until the last bubble rose. What is dead may never die. When the rite ended, torches guttered low and captains filed into the night airs smelling of kelp and fire. Yara paused beside Theon. "Bold speech," she murmured. "Can you match deeds?" "I will," he said, voice hoarse. "Then steel yourself." She tapped his chest above the heart. "Father forgives nothing." Grey dawn stained the horizon when Balon Greyjoy gathered his captains on the windlash strand beyond Pike's east tower. Each man bore a rough-hewn driftwood crown soaked in salt water, set aflame at its rim. They knelt one by one, offering the crowns to rolling breakers. The tide claimed some at once, hissing fire to steam. Others bobbed stubbornly, burning brighter as waves licked at their edges. Tradition said the crown that burned longest marked the drowned god's chosen course. Theon watched, breath hanging white, as crown after crown vanished beneath the swell. His own simple circlet lingered, flames crackling orange against steel-gray sea. Sparks danced upon whitecaps like fallen stars. Seconds stretched into moments, moments stretched into a hush that swallowed wind. When the last rival crown slipped under, only Theon's remained, blazing defiantly until a towering wave crashed upon it, dousing fire and drawing the charred wood into dark depths. Victarion's gauntlet clamped Theon's shoulder. "So it is," he declared. "The sea favors your boldness." A roar rose from the captains, some triumphant, some begrudging. Balon's approval came in a single curt nod. "The Iron Fleet sails at the next full tide," the Kraken King decreed. "Let the stag learn fear of the deep." Preparation consumed the week. Longships were caulked, oarsmen sworn by salt and steel, holds crammed with hardtack, smoked prawns, casks of ale, and barrels of lamp oil destined for enemy stores. Theon walked the docks each dawn, greeting captains, sharing rough jokes with deckhands, steadying nerves with promises of plunder and glory. Some met his words with relish. Others side-eyed the stark-cut leather at his girdle. At dusk he climbed the mast of the Sea Song and gazed west where orange sun bled across the horizon. Storm clouds billowed over Cape Kraken, distant lightning revealing forked edges of towering cumulus. He recalled Sansa Stark laughing once beneath winter lanterns, and Robb at archery but's cheering Bran's lucky shot. "They trust me," he reminded himself, "and I will not fail." On the eve of departure, Yara found him alone on the quarterdeck, sharpening a reaver's axe. She leaned on the railing, moonlight silvering the ridges of her boiled leather jerkin. "Do you believe Father truly follows the drowned god's whim?" she asked. Theon shrugged. "Faith is a sail. It moves whichever wind he fills it with." Yara smirked. "You speak like a mummer, little brother. Careful the roll doesn't swallow the man." He set the grindstone down. "You doubt this course." "I doubt softness," she said. "Bend too far to Northmen and they'll brand slave marks on your wrists once war ends. Robb Stark is not like other Greenlanders. Perhaps, but men change when crowns gleam." Her gaze flicked to the dark sea. "Just as brothers change when salt seeps from their bones." Theon stepped beside her. "I am Ironborn, and wolf-bred," she whispered. "Two souls inside one skin rarely survive peace." He had no answer, so silence settled as gulls cried and the moon dragged ragged silver over restless waves. The fleet slipped free of Lordsport under a shroud of night. Sails reefed, oars muffled. They glided between treacherous shoals like ghosts. Theon stood at the prow of the Sea Song, hair plastered by spray, eyes fixed southward. Stars flickered overhead, cold trails of light guiding them toward Storm's End and Renly's untested host. The first days were smooth. Brisk westerlies filled patched square sails. White foam churned beneath prow wolves, and the reavers sang deep-throated hymns to salt and slaughter. But on the fourth sunrise, dark clouds loomed off Cape Wrath. Victorians signaled a spread formation. Longships angled wide to weave between shoals and rocky islets. Wind howled through rigging, waves reared like charging stallions, and rain slashed decks in horizontal sheets. Even soaked and shivering, Theon felt alive. Here was his true cradle. Thunder overhead, the deck bucking beneath his boots, the scent of wet tar and brine scarlet rich with iron. He shouted orders to bank the sail, lash down barrels, double-man the steering oar. Each command the crew obeyed without hesitation. When the mast creaked like the ribs of an old giant, they braced and rowed until arms burned. When sleet bit their cheeks raw, they bellowed oaths and laughter into the gale. At dusk the storm broke. Ragged clouds drifted east, leaving a pale violet sky strewn with torn silk. The Iron Fleet regrouped in a crescent around the Iron Victory. Losses: 2 scout ships splintered against hidden rocks, 15 oarsmen drowned. A price the reavers bore with shrugs and murmured prayers. Skulls were cracked every season so that krakens might feast in others. Ahead stretched calmer seas and the southern coast, a necklace of crumbling watchtowers, fishing villages, and low, forested hills. Bonfires winked along beaches as stormlanders dried nets and mended sails, unaware of the shadowed threat gliding beneath late dusk. The first raid came at Seaguard's sister port, a nameless hamlet perched on a shelf of slate cliffs. Fisherfolk scarcely raised a cry before the Ironborn poured ashore, axes flashing in moonlight. Oil-soaked torches hissed against damp thatch. Nets burned dory. Yes, split under axes. Smoke curled upward like black ribbons on cold air. Theon ordered no killing save resistance. Still, screams echoed down Tidipools until the reavers vanished back into the surf, leaving ruin and salt stench behind. News would travel up cliff roads to Renly's command tents, but not quickly enough. The target was fear, not plunder. Fear swelled bigger than pyres. 2 days later, the fleet struck Rain House. Here, red banners of House Wild fluttered from crenellated walls above an inlet studded with sea stacks. 1 hour past sunset, Theon guided the sea song through a slender channel beneath those walls, moonlight splintering on the foam. Archers on the battlements called alarm, but the wind drowned their warnings. In moments, iron grapnels clanged upon stone. Ropes hissed, Ironborn scaled like black-clad spiders. Faint shouts became chaos. Clang of sword on mail, the crackling whoosh of oil pots slung over parapets. Theon was first to vault onto the North Tower walkway. A young wild sergeant lunged. Theon's axe bit through gorget, blood spraying hot on his cheek. He pivoted, drove a boot against a second guard's chest, sent him plummeting 20 feet to the yard. Below, Yara's reavers poured through broken gates. Flames blossomed where oil struck dry straw. Within heartbeats, the castle's granary roof roared an orange plume. Black smoke churned into the sky, carrying onshore winds that would bear the scent for leagues. Granaries, stables, armories, all fed the hungry inferno. By dawn, the Wild Lord knelt shackled in the courtyard, gazing hollow-eyed at ruins that glowed like embers in a forge. Theon spared him, sending the Lord south on a sandskiff with a single message bound to his wrist. The sea gives, the sea takes. Renly's bread is drowned. Renly Baratheon's assembling might lay camped upon the grassy plains west of Bitterbridge. 20,000 gleaming knights in rose-gold armor, banners of golden roses and crowned hearts rippling over silk-tasseled pavilions. The day Theon's letter arrived, a hush spread like plague. Sir Bryce Caron galloped to Renly's grand pavilion bearing news of burnt storehouses, missing grain ships, and villages ravaged from the Rainwood to Nightsong. Stormland's envoys spoke of black sails in the mists and bearded demons out of the waves. Renly, bright, laughing, lion-smiled Renly, took the news with outward calm but felt ice coil in his gut. His host, so vast, so splendid, was fed by roads and rivers. Now both were shaken. Without steady grain, armor weighed heavier, tempers frayed, horses tired. Worst was the fear. Men who could face charging spearmen quailed at the intangible terror of raiders slipping from the night sea. He summoned Ser Loras Tyrell and Lady Brienne of Tarth to his war table, demanding proposals. Find these reavers and break them. Yet the narrow coastal inlets were endless, the Iron Fleet swift and untrackable. Scouts rode out only to find charred holds, broken nets, bodies left on tide-washed stones with Kraken symbols carved in their breasts. Soon rumors swelled beyond truth. 10,000 war galleys, Krakens burning even the Rainwood's earth. Balon Greyjoy crowned king of the islands and Greenlands alike. Renly faced his captains with bravado, but each new dawn he scanned eastern horizons for sails. The fear stole color from his banners. Theon watched their dread like a gathering storm from the deck of the Sea Song. Weeks passed in a tempo of silent approach, swift strike, smoke-bright retreat. Port after port fell, not to occupation but to sudden flame and empty larders. He ordered excess grain cast into the tide, nets slashed, well stones shattered. Hunger, he knew, would wage a more relentless siege than any sword. When at last Renly moved hundreds of knights to patrol the coast, Victarion struck at Old Oak's farther harbors, torching Tyrell supply cogs. When the Tyrell bannermen shifted west, Yara slid inland along the Wendwater, burning mills and ferry posts. Renly's host began to shrink, men deserting under cover of darkness, convinced the war was doomed. One moonless night, a wave of sickness swept his cavalry as rancid oats, soaked in brine to rot, were fed to horses desperate for feed. Yet Theon understood none of this would matter if Renly reached King's Landing first and claimed the Iron Throne outright. Starved or not, a crowned stag would turn the war. Thus he planned one final stroke. Strike Renly's makeshift naval supply at the Mander Delta, where Tyrell flatterers insisted their grain convoys could sail under the rose banner unmolested. Strike the rose's root and its petals will wither, he told Victarion beneath wavering lantern light. Victarion's answering grin shone like cold iron. They sailed within the week, 30 longships skimming night-black water, lanterns hooded, oars muffled with soaked wool. From the masthead Theon spied the faint glow of lanterns along the river mouth. Tyrell barges lashed bow to stern, laden with oats, barley, and Tyrell gold minted to pay sellswords. Fat as maggots they floated, crews singing soft harvest songs in mid-river calm. An owl hooted in distant reeds. Theon's hand rose in silent signal. Ironborn archers drew, arrowheads dipped in black pitch. Flames blossomed along narrow reeds of flight, hissing as they leapt through humid night air. The first barge erupted in roaring light. Screams echoed. Chain links clattered as crews flailed to cast off. Then the longships were upon them, rams shattering hull planks, boarding axes cleaving rails. Reavers spilled across decks like dark tide. Barrels burst, grain cascaded into swirling river currents, swirling away like pale smoke on black water. The battle was swift, brutal, and final. Before sunrise, every barge burned fitful on the Mander's oily surface, and the Iron Fleet slipped back into the dawn mist, leaving behind flaming skeletons of Renly's last hope for bread. In Bitterbridge, Renly's cook fires dwindled as flower stalks failed. Horses collapsed on dusty roads, their ribs cutting through hides. Tyrell knights muttered that the Reach fields fed half the realm, yet Ironborn devils sailed untouched. Loras Tyrell's fury burned bright, but his green boy's courage wilted when rations halved again. Desertion soared, company lines frayed, and as the stag wilted, Stannis marched. Hard, flinty, unrelenting, the elder Baratheon drove north with sell sails from Lys and Myr, for 100 knights from the marches, and Melisandre's zealous fires burning in every camp. On the field near Bitterbridge, where golden grass turned trampled mud, Renly faced his brother in a battle meant to decide the fate of crowns, only to meet hollow ranks and hunger-bent men. The outcome was foregone. Stormlander lines broke at first charge of Stannis' heavy left. Tyrell levies fled before Brienne or Loras could rally them. Renly's personal guard fought like lions but were drowned in a tide of disciplined fury. By sunset, the younger stag lay punctured by a dozen spears, crown broken, banners torn. A hush swept the Stormlands that night, the hush of famished men awakening to bitter dawn. Theon learned of Renly's fall atop the deck of the Iron Victory, where Victarion read the Raven Scroll aloud, voice booming across assembled captains. Elation hooped through the fleet. Men thumped shields with axe hafts until the air throbbed. Some spat into the tide to honor drowned foes. Others tossed knives skyward, catching razor edges in calloused palms. Yet Theon felt a quieter triumph, one tempered by memory of burned farms and gaunt villagers left in his wake. Victory stained. Salt, he now understood, corroded everything it touched, even the heart. Still, war demanded its grim measure, and he had paid it. Robb Stark would hear of Renly's ruin and know whose hand loosened the stag's footing. He turned to the wind, inhaling the briny breath of dusk. A small part of him wondered if the North would see him as savior or as Kraken come ashore. But that was a fear for tomorrow's tides. Tonight the sea sang of glory, of deeds carved into prowheads and sung in smoky halls. Yara stepped to his side, offering a flagon of fiery rum. "To the prodigal Ironborn," she toasted. "The drowned god has not forgotten your name after all." Theon drank, throat burning. "For salt and iron," he replied, "and for the brothers who keep faith." Beneath them the deck creaked as the longship cut soft waves. Sails full, prow aimed north toward Pike and the next chapter of a world newly unbalanced. The night deepened, stars wheeled overhead, and Theon Greyjoy, Ironborn and wolf-bred both, stood at the bow, hair whipping in the gathering breeze, charting a course through darkness toward a dawn laden with more trials than triumphs. But for the first time he felt the keel steady beneath his feet, as though the sea itself whispered a harsh, salt-bitter blessing. What is dead may never die, but rises harder and stronger. The Iron Fleet rode north beneath a bruised purple sky, water slick with pale moonshine. Wind thrummed in the rigging while the sea song cleaved a steady path, and Theon Greyjoy stood alone at the prow, watching clouds churn like smoke above the horizon. On the third night after Renly's fall, he felt the weather shift, something deeper than barometric change, a stirring of fate as sure as currents that dragged a sailor's bones into the black beneath. He had seen battles end before, but never one he himself had broken with shadow and salt. The weight of it pressed behind his eyes, a silent drum that beat louder whenever he recalled the faces of half-starved knights stumbling across Bitterbridge, the hollow look in Renly Baratheon's dying eyes, and Stannis's grim banners marching through fields where children once gathered flowers. "Did I pull those petals loose?" a voice whispered inside him. Yet each time the doubt rose, another voice, quieter, colder, answered, "It was necessary." Far aft, torches glimmered on the quarterdeck where Victarion still drank with captains, boasting of mounds of Tyrell gold seized, of outriders hacked apart on grassy dunes, of plunder so plentiful holds sagged with its weight. Their raucous laughter reached Theon on the wind, raw as gull cry. Yara had vanished below to dice with her crew. Each shouted cheer felt oddly distant. He could not shake a sense that he had stepped into deeper water than any Ironborn before him. Shortly before dawn, pale light smudging the eastern edge of the world, footfalls creaked behind him. Aaron Damphair emerged ghost-silent, oil-soaked beard gleaming black in the half-light, seaweed wrapped like a pilgrim's cord around his bare forearms. He said nothing for a long moment, only watched the horizon as if reading runes etched in slate-gray sky. A gull wheeled overhead, screeching. At Bitterbridge, the priest finally murmured, "You drowned many souls who had never tasted the sea. Even so, the water remembers every breath they stole on land. Their bones will sing salt songs now." "It was war," Theon answered, voice low. "Aye, war pleases the drowned god. Yet we must give thanks, else his wrath rise when we least foresee." Theon turned to him. "You wish me to kneel? No man kneels save to the waves." Damphair's eyes were like twin whirlpools. "But remember, kinsman, glory drawn from green blood battles can turn sour as estuary mud. Salt runs purer when taken from foes who honor the sea." Theon understood the rebuke. "You'd rather we raided Lannisport than burnt barns in the Stormlands. I'd rather the Ironborn stand apart from wolves and Coal Kings. The sea is our bride. She spurns bedfellows from rivers and castles." Then pray she shares my bed a little longer, Theon said, not unkindly. Because without the north we stand alone against dragons and lions alike. Damfair's gaze lingered on him, fathom deep. Even a kraken's arms may overreach. Beware the stretching. He left without another word, robes whispering like ebbing tide. They reached Pike under a watercolor dawn, gulls screeching welcome. Smoke still curled in chimneys along Lordsport, but the port already throbbed with new energy. A dozen captured Tyrell cogs moored beside the longships, hold spilling bales of saffron, sacks of bitter leaf, chests of arbor gold sealed with waxen roses now stamped by kraken claws. Islanders hauled trophies ashore, children chasing after beads and ribbons, reavers striding proud beneath makeshift crowns of plaited eelgrass. Balon Greyjoy received them in the yard of Pebbleton Tower, flanked by black iron columns of house guards. Theon knelt only for form, Ironborn fashion, on one knee, gazed forward, while Balon's stern face betrayed a flicker of something that might be approval. "The Reach howls," Balon rasped. "Ravens speak of Tyrell grief and Stormlander ruin. They howl because they starve," Theon answered. "Renly lies cold. Stannis stands alone to fight lions and dragons." Balon nodded. "And the North sends word?" At that Theon withdrew a scroll bound in dire wolf wax. Balon cracked it, eyes scanning Robb Stark's short, iron-tight hand, lips twitching at each line. When finished, he offered the parchment to the brazier beside him. Red coals hissed. Gray smoke curled upward, carrying Stark ink to salted air. "He praises our courage and offers trade lanes across the neck," Theon said. "Barter in timber, iron, and grain once winter sets. He names me shield brother and friend." Balon's voice cut like splintered shale. "He names. A wolf naming leashes, a wolf naming friends. Words." He snapped gloved fingers. Victarion stepped forward bearing a coarse linen sack. Balon appended it, ingots of copper and bronze crashing onto the flagstones. "What I need is ships, nails, tor. The North has forests aplenty, yet he sends tokens." Theon kept his tone measured. "This is the first gift. More will follow. Robb marches east, his coffers strained by war. But grant time and he will repay us thrice." Balon's stare was winter-cold. "Time is a luxury not given to gray men who linger on windswept rocks." While we raided south, Euron sails unseen. The name struck like a thrown knife. Euron. But he fled across the sunset sea. "A black wind always returns," Balon said. "A raven from the Shield Islands claims a tall ship with sails the color of bruises raided their docks, took daughters for salt wives, and left a single feather nailed to the sept door." Theon felt his stomach tighten. Victarion's face had gone granite. "Black feather," he growled, Euron's mocking sigil. Balon's gaze shifted between his sons. "We cannot fight two wars, one against lions and one against our own blood. If Euron gathers exiles and mutes beyond the Mander, he will strike us where we least expect. You," he pointed at Theon, "brought me victory. Now bring me security. Sail west at once. Find Euron, clip his wings." Theon opened his mouth to speak of rebuilding yards, of consolidating their hold, then saw the iron in Balon's expression. There would be no debate. "A fleet for a fleet," Victarion rumbled. "The Iron Victory leads." "No," Balon said. "You remain. The Reach may yet send wardramans. Someone must guard Pike. My youngest hunts the Crow's Eye. Let that be his proving." Theon bowed stiffly. "As you command." That night, as storm clouds brewed again above the great keep, Theon sat within his childhood bedchamber. The room felt smaller now, seashells still strung across the rafters, old nets draped upon stone like cobwebs of a life half-forgotten. Yara arrived unceremoniously, perched on the crenellated window ledge, boots dangling into wet darkness. "You sail at first light," she said, voice low. "Fathers will leashes us both," he answered. She shrugged. "At least he did not send me to chase the Crow's Eye. Euron is unpredictable. Unpredictable men bleed the same," Theon muttered, though he could not quite summon conviction. Yara tossed him a sealed wineskin. Dark Arbor Red, stolen from Tyrell Holds. Share it, brother. Might be your last drink that doesn't taste of brine. They drank in silence, listening to rain begin its tattoo against slate roof tiles. After a time, Yara spoke, softer. Our people celebrate you tonight, but know this. Ironborn crowns sit on melted candle wax. They hold until heat returns. Father exults now. Next moon he may demand other feats. I'll meet them, Theon said, and one day rule Pike beside you. She studied him, unreadable. Rule Pike? Or rule some alliance of Kraken and Wolf? There is a world where both drown their old grudges, he insisted. Her laugh was gentle, almost sad. Dreams drown sooner than sailors. With that, she slid from the window and was gone. They set sail on a gray tide, a half-squadron of 9 longships. Sea Song, Foam Fong, Oathbreak, 3 swift scout galleys, and 3 towering prize cogs retrofitted with Ironborn rigs. Their course carried them northwest across open waters famed for treacherous reefs and sudden gales. Theon moved among crews, praising discipline, checking provisions, ensuring archers re-waxed bowstrings daily. Nights brought unquiet sleep. He dreamed of a dark figure on a deck lit by ghostly lanterns. An eye patch cut from human skin, laughter like cracked bells, and each time he woke slick with sweat despite cold wind. During daylight, he sharpened memory of Euron's tales, of a man who sailed the smoking ruins of Valyria and returned with nothing but a hush upon his lips, of a brother who would pour the world into a cup if only to watch it swallow itself. On the 5th day, the ships neared the Shield Islands, low silhouettes on a humid horizon where storm squalls flirted with land. From aloft, a sailor hailed ruins. Smoking rafters on Greenshield's eastern village, shattered watchtower, fisher huts collapsed into blackened heaps. Bodies dotted the shore like driftwood. Crows circled. Theon ordered the Sea Song to anchor in a sheltered cove while scouts took small boats. He went ashore himself, boots squelching in mud as gulls shrieked overhead. The stench was immediate: charred pork, rotting fish, death baked in early summer heat. Among the corpses he saw Tyrell men-at-arms stripped of armor, small folk with faces blued from strangled fear, even a septon hanging from a crabapple tree, 7-pointed star nailed to his brow. On a stone jetty lay a feather, raven black, glossy, enormous, and pinned beneath it a strip of parchment smeared with a single purple, pupil-like circle. Theon's heart thudded. Euron's mocking crow's eye. He knelt, brushing ash aside. Beneath the sigil someone, perhaps the crow's eye himself, had etched words in High Valyrian, Edruda Valankar Engos. The tongue of old Valyria still rang in his thoughts from Maester Luwin's lessons. Brother, your chain snaps soon. Victarion's chain? Or his? Theon rose, scanning the empty sea. A chill climbed his spine despite heavy leather. Scouts reported fishermen's rumors of a monstrous warship with sails the color of bruises, black tinged purple in sunlight, and masts tipped with dragonbone carved into women's screaming faces. It slipped between islands like a shark, anchoring only long enough to burn, plunder, and vanish into mist. The Silence, Euron's flagship. Theon convened his captains that night aboard the Sea Song. A rough map lay on a barrel between them, lanterns swinging overhead. He strikes isolated coves, then runs, Theon said, tapping markers across Greenshield and Oakenshield. My guess is he seeks crews, thrill, no strategi. See hold yet. Then trap him with bait, suggested Harl the huntsman, captain of Foam Fong. We feign merchantmen, appear ripe for plunder. Others nodded, but Theon's mind churned deeper.
Euron thrives on surprise.
Give him too easy a target and he'll suspect trap. What then? Harl pressed. Smoke, Theon decided. Tomorrow we torch our own captured cog at dusk north of Greenshield. Make it look crippled, sails half-rigged, crew fled. Black smoke will draw the crow. Meanwhile, longships wait submerged behind the shoal reefs, oars ready. When silence draws near, we swarm. Grapples, firepots, no quarter. Murmurs of approval. Plans etched in whispers until udders of old goatskin were drained. As captains filed out, Theon lingered at the rail watching stars blink through ragged clouds. "Will he come?" asked Mailer Storm, his young deck scribe. "He loves spectacle," Theon said, "and we're giving him a bonfire fit for history." The next evening, thunderheads swelled over dark sea as the captured cog was set ablaze. Flames climbed rigging, licking the night with hungry tongues. From their hidden vantage behind a narrow reef belt, longships bobbed silent, sails furled, lanterns hooded. Oarsmen sat ready, muscles coiled. The only sounds were hissing embers on distant wind and water shocking hull planks. An hour passed. Lightning forked within thunderheads, illuminating the burning hulk in white flashes. Then a cry from the mast top. "Sail! Port side!" Out of gloom emerged a silhouette larger than any Reaver had yet seen. A towering hull, triple-banked oars sheathed, sails hanging slack like night-tattered banners. Pale lamps ringed her beak-shaped prow. Beneath each glimmered row upon row of iron spikes tipped with severed hands that swayed gently with swell. Atop the tallest mast flapped a banner of black so deep it swallowed starlight, stitched with a single blue-green eye. Even at distance the vessel radiated wrongness, an aura of hush, as though the sea dared not ripple too loudly beside it. "Crow's eye," someone whispered. Theon's pulse hammered. He gave the silent signal, a fist cut downward. Oars bit water, longships sliding like knives from shadow. Silence drifted toward the dying cog, perhaps drawn by plunder, perhaps curiosity. She slowed but did not halt, and Theon realized with dread she meant to ram the wreck aside, not board. Too soon. They were still 700 paces distant. "Full pull," he hissed. "Now, lads. Row like bastards, bay whips your arses." Muscle strained. Wood creaked. Longships surged. Sparks swirled above the burning hulk as silence closed. Her prow's figurehead revealed in flicker. No woman's face, but something stranger. A twisted kraken with feathered wings, eyes of polished jade. Theon shuddered. At 300 paces, he raised his war horn and blew. A deep, mournful blast rolled across water. Instantaneously, archers lit pitch-dipped arrows from shielded braziers. Flaming shafts streaked heavenward, then rained upon the silence, though most clattered harmlessly off lacquered hull, some embedding in soaked sailcloth to sizzle out. Euron's warship seemed to wake. White-painted oars slid like fangs from hull slits, drawing her into a slow turn. No shouted commands, no drumbeats, only eerie coordination as if crew moved by singular mind. "Grapples ready," Theon cried. The first longship, Oathbreak, rammed starboard midships and stuck fast. Hooks clanged onto rail. Ironborn scrambled up, screaming war cries. Silence answered with no war shouts, just black armored shapes brandishing curved axes of Valyrian steel, eyes glinting cold. The clangor of combat erupted, steel on strange steel. Theon vaulted rail moments later, landing amid chaos. A mute spearman lunged. Theon's axe split his jaw. Flames from a tipped lantern skittered along deck oil, igniting rope coils. Theon saw Harl fall beneath two mutes, throat opened. He slew them both and pressed on, searching for the eye patch. Lightning cracked, brightening the deck in strobe. At the forecastle top stood Euron Greyjoy. No eye patch. Both eyes glittered, one black as midnight, the other colored the deep turquoise of a tropical lagoon. A grin parted his beard as he surveyed the melee, as though it were a festival display. He wore lacquered armor the hue of spilled wine, sigilled only by an hourglass worked in pale bone. In his right hand gleamed a whip-thin blade with ripples that shifted color, damascene steel touched by hungry sorcery. "Theon!" he called, voice like honey poured over broken glass. "Little whelp of wolves and waves, come embrace your destiny." Theon met his gaze, felt a vertigo like gazing into tide-pulled abyss. He pushed forward, hacking through mutes. The deck pitched. Rain began to fall, fat, hot drops that hissed on coals and stone. Midway, Euron leapt down lithely, blade dancing sparks. Their weapons rang. Euron's style was fluid, almost lazy, parrying with smallest motion, then riposting with flicks that shaved Theon's mail near to ruin. "You smell of dog," Euron laughed. "Did they feed you table scraps, those direwolves? Did you wag for belly rubs?" Theon swung overhead. Euron sidestepped. Blade flicked across Theon's cheek, opening hot line of blood. Pain sharpened focus. Theon kicked a fallen shield upward into Euron's face. The crows, I stumbled a step. Lightning flashed again, dazzling. In that heartbeat Theon lunged. Shoulder-checked Euron hard against the stair railing. Crack of timber. Euron's sword arm flailed. Theon grappled wrist, drove knee into armored gut. They crashed to deck together, rolling across slick planks, fists hammering. A thunderclap boomed. Theon saw above them the rigging on fire. One burning yardarm groaned. Rope parted, the whole spar lurching down. He flung himself sideways as the beam smashed between them, pinning Euron's legs with shuddering impact. Splinters flew. Euron roared, half in rage, half delight. His free arm clawed for Theon, but the beam held him. Mutes rushed to aid. Ironborn closed to stop them, fighting devolving into savage knots around the crow captain. Theon staggered upright. A mute axe sailed at his head. He ducked, swung low, severed ankle. Flames spread. Another strike cracked his pauldron. He spilled one more man's entrails before turning back to Euron. Their gazes locked again across embers. End it, Euron hissed, grin undiminished. Take your place. Theon hefted his axe. For a breath he considered sparing, binding this monster, hauling him to Father for judgment. But deep inside he glimpsed something behind Euron's dazzling eye, bottomless, star-speckled, hint of infinite screams, a terror older than salt. Mercy would be no mercy at all. He swung. The axe bit collarbone, cleaving down into rib. Black blood geysered. Euron's laughter gurgled, then ceased as life fled his eyes. Theon yanked steel free just as wave heaved, burying deck in surf that quenched flames. Silence, true silence, settled. The uncanny hush broken only by crackle of dying fires and rasps of wounded men. Remaining mutes, bereft of their master's will, offered little resistance. One by one they fell or leapt overboard to vanish into black water. When dawn finally peeled gray light over the horizon, the silence rode low, her proud masts slumped, hull holed in multiple places, fires long out. Theon stood on quarterdeck beside Harl's corpse and countless others, feeling each ragged breath echo the ship's final creak. He ordered her scuttled. Holds were stripped of plunder. Strange crystals, bound tomes of leather pale as corpse skin, flasks sealed with glyphs none deciphered, all loaded onto Sea Song and the other surviving longships. Then they rowed a safe distance. Archers fired burning brands. The sorceress would caught quick, wreathing the dark sails in violet-tinged flame. As the hull cracked, a low wail drifted over water, wind through broken pipes, or the ship's own dying voice. Theon watched until she vanished beneath black waves, taking the crow's eye with her. News of Euron's death spread through the Iron Islands within a fortnight, borne by shorebirds and fast oarboats. Theon's name grew heavier, weight now forged in fratricide. Some hailed him as savior, breaker of renegade shadow. Others whispered he slew a kinsman by trickery, that true kraken kill only foes who meet them prow to prow. Balon held council in the Seastone chair for 3 full days before sending summons. Theon entered the great hall alone, rainwater dripping from fur mantle. Captains lined benches, he saw skepticism in their eyes, but also awe. Aaron Damphair stood near the font, lips pursed in solemn prayer. Balon's voice cracked across the chamber. You have cut out the rot growing behind our name. You brought famine to stag, fear to rose, and quiet to crow. He gestured. A servant carried forward a circlet wrought from twisted black iron, coldly polished, ends shaped into small kraken tentacles. Not the great crown of salt and rock, Balon still wore that, but something new. I name you Lord Reaper of the Shield Coast, Balon proclaimed. You will hold Greenshield, Oakenshield, and all sea lanes between to feed Pike with Reach grain. You will build your own fleet, answerable to Pike yet commanded by you. Murmurs rose, some approving, others threatened. Theon bowed head, emotions colliding. Triumph, responsibility, isolation. He accepted the circlet. And remember, Balon added, gaze flinty. Loyalty not to wolves or crows, but to salt and iron. Theon straightened. Salt and iron, he echoed. Weeks passed in fevered labor. The Shield Coast fortifications rose, crude palisades and new docks carved from island oaks. Refugees were herded into makeshift camps, forced to till fields that now flew Kraken banners. Ironborn garrison towers soon studded the low mists, each topped with warning beacons. Theon spent his days on horseback inspecting ditches, nights drafting war drafts, quotas of grain, numbers of reavers to train as mounted scouts, schedules for longship patrols. Beyond those duties, he penned ravens, one to Robb Stark, another to Lady Catelyn, whose courtesy demanded separate address, a third to Stannis Baratheon, though he doubted it would find purchase. He explained the new order. The Iron Islands would police southwestern seas in exchange for peace with the North and recognition of Shield Coast stewardship. He offered half of all seized grain at fair trade. He urged them to consider that a kraken guarding one coast freed wolves to gnaw lions unimpeded. Ravens returned. Robb's reply warm yet wary. Catelyn's polite though hinting at the memory of Ned's scorn for reavers. Stannis's raven never arrived. Late summer brought expedition from King's Landing, the first test of his guardianship. A fleet of 30 Lannister galleys under command of Ser Davos Seri, bright red lions snarling on their sails, crept along coastlines intent on scouring the isles. Their banners flapped proud, unaware that watchers lit beacons on every shield head. Theon waited with 40 longships in bay shadow behind Greenshield cliffs. By dusk, the lions rode into narrow strait, searching coves for raiders. At Theon's signal, 1,000 reavers burst forth. The water churned red with reflections of burning pitch, galleys caught in crossfire of scorpions, war horns howling, iron songs clanging. Lions roared, krakens answered. The battle lasted 2 hours. Only 7 galleys escaped in disgrace, stripped of cargo, crews decimated. Theon sent surviving prisoners back to Lannisport half-naked, each bearing carved kraken mark on shoulder blade and a single phrase branded on forearm. The sea remembers. That winter, the Shield Coast outposts flourished on stolen grain, while much of the mainland starved amid broken harvests. Theon built a hall atop Greenshield's tallest cliff, stones quarried from old Tyrell watchtowers, beams rough with salt. From its windows he saw surf crash white against black rock, heard gulls circle midday, felt a pull both outward, toward sea's endless call, and inward, toward something forming within him like a pearl in grit. A vision that the Ironborn could be more than raiders and rebels. They could stand as masters of maritime trade, as mediators of coastal strife. But such vision demanded delicate weaving of loyalties, and Ironborn threads frayed under subtlety. One dawn, Yara arrived unannounced, cloak snapped by winter wind, eyes bright with warning. "Father prepares another fleet," she reported over hot crab stew. He grows restless, talks of seizing Moat Cailin, of choking the neck to ransom the north. Theon set his spoon down. He promised alliance. Father promises storms, then wonders why men drown. She leaned forward. He will break the pact if he believes the sea begs it. Already some captains mutter you grow soft, trading grain instead of taking gold. Trade fills holds far more than plunder. But glory, Yara countered. Glory is bone to Ironborn's teeth. They hunger for it. Theon stood, pacing before hearth. Robb Stark needs Moat Cailin secure for his war roads. If Father seizes it, we fight our only friend. Then convince him not to, she challenged. Convince a storm not to break cliffs. A heavy silence settled. Outside, waves boomed. He sailed to Pike that month, leaving his deputy Dagmar Cleftjaw to guard the shields. Rough seas battered but could not delay him. Urgency cut deeper than frostbite. Arriving, he found the islands abuzz. New ships on slipways, priests blessing keels with bloody saltwater, banners sewn. In stone hall lit by whale oil lamps, Balon paced before a sprawling chart of the north. Moat Cailin commands the neck. Pinch its throat, the wolf cannot breathe. Theon argued. Robb fights on our behalf when he fights the lion. He'll send spoils. Winter draws near. Ours will need grain as well. Wolves dine in timber halls while we feed on barnacles, Balon snapped. Your trade lanes fatten shield peasants, not orphans of pike. Theon spread hands. But if we raid the north, the shields are lost. Tyrell vengeance will fall while our fleet sails away. We keep what we took only by standing with allies, not turning blades on them. Balon's glare was a frozen gale. You sound like a Greenland scold. Sound strategy is neither green nor gray, Theon insisted. A tremor passed Balon's shoulder. Enough. Prepare to sail with me. Victorian strikes from the sunset sea, you from east. We take the neck before the lion hears. Theon felt something within him harden, calcify.
No.
The word echoed like dropped anchor. Balon stopped. What?
No, Theon repeated.
I will not break honor with the North. The drowned god is witness, I swore to Robb Stark. To betray that vow invites drown in deeper water. Hall murmurs swelled into shocked hush. Balon advanced until nose nearly touched his son's. You defy me? I guard your western shore, your grain, Theon said. Leave Moat Cailin to Starks. Let lions and dragons bleed each other, and we shall rule the seas. A sharp hand struck Theon's cheek. Pain bloomed. Balon's ring scored a line of blood. He ignored it. The king's voice was gravel. No son of mine takes orders from pups. Hand back that crown of shields and kneel, or be cast out. Theon's jaw tingled. He saw victors of Renly's fall, Euron's corpse, children in shield fields tilling soil, Ironborn with bellies full of reach grain. He saw Yara watching from shadows, eyes wide. He removed the black iron circlet, weighed it. I will keep faith with both islands and north, he said. If that costs your blessing, so be it. He set the circlet on the map, atop Moat Cailin's drawn green woods. Balon stared, breathing ragged. Then he turned to guards. Seize this traitor. Steel hissed. Yara stepped forward, an axe toward Balon's own men. Touch him, she warned, and see which side your blood falls. Balon glared at her. Daughter, stand aside. Father, she returned coolly. Kill your heir and the shield's rebel. Pike starves before spring. The standoff hung like lightning between clouds. At length Balon's shoulders sagged a fraction. Go then, he muttered to Theon. Go to your wolves, but never return. Theon bowed stiffly. What is dead may never die, he said. A farewell both prayer and curse. He left Pike that night with only a small guard and a single longship, the Foamfang. Yara walked with him to the pier. Rain peppered harbor black. I stay, she said. Someone must steer the storm lest it smash us all. I know. She clasped his forearm. Stay, Ironborn. He squeezed back. Stay, sister. Then she was gone, silhouette swallowed by fog. Theon boarded, sails unfurled, and the longship slipped into dark water toward Dawnport, toward Robb Stark, toward unknown winter. Mid-passage, a gale rose so violent it shredded the mainsail, snapped a yardarm. Foamfang nearly broke on Hidden Reef. For a full night they bailed and prayed, rain blinding, thunder shaking bone. Theon lashed himself to mast stump, voice hoarse from commands, salty tears and rain mingling. Is this Balon's curse? He thought, but no, storms cared nothing for quarrels. They simply devoured. At dawn, wind eased. A red sun climbed, staining sea like fresh blood. Theon collapsed near tiller, watching gulls appear from nowhere. Exhaustion lulled him, but revelation flickered. His life had become ceaseless balancing, a kraken trying to ride two waves at once. Perhaps only by severing one tide could he master the other. He reached White Harbor a week later, berth offered by Manderley levies once his kraken sails lowered. Snow flurried across docks, winter's breath truly here. Maester's ravens informed him Robb Stark camped near Harrenhal, wintering troops before spring offensives. Theon penned word of Balon's planned invasion. He begged for trust, offered the shields as guarantee, and asked safe audience. Weeks crawled while ravens flew. During that span, tidings arrived. Stannis Baratheon, after routing Renly, marched on King's Landing. only to be thrown back by wildfire and Lannister reinforcements led by Tywin and the newly allied Tyrell host. In aftermath, Tyrells turned hatred toward Kraken raiders who'd starved them. They pledged coin and ships to crush the Iron Islands come spring. Theon saw forces aligning. Lannister-Tyrell alliance in south. Stannis battered but unbowed on Dragonstone. Greyjoy fleet divided, Northmen isolated. He realized the next wave would drown whichever shore lacked swift cunning. At last a raven-bearing direwolf seal arrived. Robb would grant audience at Moat Cailin on first thaw. Theon prepared for the long ride through snow-choked Wolfswood, answering every question in his own mind. Loyalty, identity, future of Ironborn. He donned boiled leather beneath wolf fur cloak, strapped his axe across back, and set off with small retinue across frozen rivers that groaned like waking beasts. The road south carried echoes, children's songs about the young wolf, hushed tales of krakens saving starving villages, counters of krakens burning farms. At each village Theon paused to share salt fish, trade shield grain for oats, speak with elders whose eyes measured him behind thin smiles. Slowly word of his deeds preceded him, some heroic, some monstrous, and he understood reputation was a blade with two edges. Approaching Moat Cailin, he found its high earthworks under fresh repair, Lycida bristling, stark banners snapped on ramparts. He was ushered with an old basalt tower, torchlit and coarse with cold drafts that smelled of peat. Robb awaited near a brazier, gray wind curled at feet. The dire wolf lifted shaggy head to sniff, then settled again, though eyes remained golden slits upon Theon. Beside Robb stood Maester Vyman, Lord Rickard Karstark, and Great John Umber, grim advisors all. Robb's face bore new lines, youth toughened by constant siege of war, yet a glimmer of fondness warmed his gaze. "Brother," he said, grasping Theon's forearm. Theon returned grip. "King," they spoke at length. Theon told of Euron's end, of Balon's plan, of his exile. He laid the black iron circlet before Robb. "These islands shield us both," he said. "Give me sanction to hold them under northern protection. I will swear fealty, not as hostage, but as lord and ally." Great John grunted skepticism. Karstark frowned. Vyman's quill scraped parchment restlessly. Robb listened, jaw taut. "You ask much," Robb said. "Knelt fealty, land rights, autonomy of fleet. Yet your father marches against us." "My father marches because he fears irrelevance," Theon replied. "Defeat him at Moat Cailin, and his captains will waver. Offer them grain, homes on warm coasts, they'll side with me. Iron loyalty can bend." Umber spat. "Can break easier." Robb raised hand. "Let him finish." Theon unfolded last parchment. A coastal chart showing expedient lanes from White Harbor to Gulltown, circumventing Lannister-Tyrell blockades. "With shield ports, our fleets circumvent storms, supply you year-round. While lions guard Blackwater, we land at Crackclaw, threaten King's Landing from east. We split their focus." Karstark's ice-blue eyes lingered on map. "You speak strategy fit for lordship," he admitted. Robb paced, gray wind shadowing. He stopped. "If I accept, we war not only with Lannister but Tyrell. Your father adds Ironborn threat. Stannis fights too. A forefront realm." "The realm already stands atop shifting sand," Theon said. "Better to anchor in deep water." Silence. Snow tapped window slats. Fire popped sparks. Robb finally spoke. "I will grant provisional lordship of shields under northern vassalage. Prove your worth. Hold coast through next summer. Send grain. Raid no northern hamlet. If father attacks, you fight him. Fail, and the north rescinds claim." Theon bowed. "Done." Gray wind rose, padded forward, sniffed Theon's gloved hand, then licked salt-stained knuckle. A silent omen. Riding back north, Theon felt mixture of triumph and dread. He carried letters sealed with direwolf wax granting him title Lord of the Shield Coast. He carried another, a plea to Yara to temper Balon's wrath. Yet he knew not whether father or Tyrell or Lannister would strike first. Crossing a frozen creek one dusk, he paused, gazing west where faint glow of sunset flared along blanketed horizon. Somewhere beyond those sky-red dunes slept Pike, and beyond Pike the cold, endless sea that birthed and perhaps one day would swallow him. "Salt and iron," he murmured, touching axe. Then he added, softly, "and honor." The wind carried his words away, scattering them like gulls on updraft, to drift across white fields toward oceans and wars yet to come. Spring buds cracked open in the reach as Tyrell galleys massed under Paxter Redwine. Balon Greyjoy launched raids on Lannisport despite winter storms. Stannis rebuilt at Dragonstone, forging new alliances with disaffected Stormlords. King Joffrey and King's Landing preened beneath golden cloaks while whispers of Kraken-Wolf alliances filtered through his small council, setting Cersei's green eyes flashing with concern. And on Greenshield Clifftop, Theon's hall echoed with hammer blows. New longships took shape, sleeker, broader, built for cargo as well as war. Black iron crowns were hammered into hull prows, cresting like Kraken tentacles. Shield Coast thralls labored side by side with volunteers from Bear Island and Flint Cliffs, trading pine for salt cod. One late afternoon, as gulls skimmed turquoise surf, Theon stood on yet unfinished pier, salt breeze whipping cloak. A courier skiff had arrived from Storm's End bearing unexpected parchment. He broke seal. Stannis' crab sigil glared in crimson wax. The letter's script was terse, iron-edged. Acknowledgement of Renly debt, admission of Ironborn's instrumental role, and a proposal, joint sea assault on Blackwater in autumn, splitting Lannister-Tyrell fleet. Theon folded parchment thoughtfully. Allies shifted like tides. Trust but illusions, yet illusions sometimes carved kingdoms. He would need Robb's counsel, Yara's cunning, his own grit. Footsteps approached. Dagmar Cleftjaw, weather-worn face in half-smile. "Deckmaster says the Shield Maiden floats free tomorrow. Shall we christen her?" Theon nodded. "We christen her, and name her the first of many." "Many ships," Dagmar mused. "Many seas. And one purpose," Theon said. "Which is?" "To make the world remember there is more to a Kraken than pillage," Theon answered. He touched the healed line on his cheek. Euron's parting gift. "And that loyalty is as sharp as any hook." Dagmar grinned, half his mouth a ruin of missing teeth. "The sea will test that." "It always does," Theon said, eyes on horizon where sunset bled like pink coral into dark. "But I am ready for the next storm." The gulls wheeled overhead, screeching triumph or warning. One could never tell. Waves lapped piers below, steady heartbeats of the deep. Somewhere out there, Balon prepared sails, Tyrells sharpened spears, dragons banked in rumor. Theon tightened grip on railing, inhaled brine-sharp air, and felt the currents shifting underfoot, carrying him onward into the vast unknown. Half wolf, half kraken, wholly his own. Night fell, and with it came the hush of weaving fate. Word traveled on restless wings. Paxter Redwine's wine-dark sails massed off the arbor, gilded prows aimed toward the Shield Coast. Balon Greyjoy's western raiders prowled the sunsets with renewed hunger. Lannister couriers whispered of a joint Tyrell Lannister armada, eager to scour Kraken banners from every mast between Old Town and the arbor. Amid these gathering storms, Theon Greyjoy stood in a drafty hall of fresh-hewn stone atop Greenshield's highest bluff, tracing a line of frost on the sea chart with a gloved fingertip. The candles guttered in salty wind that crept through mortar cracks, hissing as though conspiring with the waves below. 10 months had passed since Renly's ruin and Euron's fall. 10 months of frantic fortification, of apple-cheeked small folk conscripted to raise palisades, of refugees from the Reach pressed into thrall duties beneath Kraken banners. And 10 months, too, of wrangling with northern quartermasters to barter grain for timber, iron for wool, salt cod for tanned hides. Trade that kept the Shield Coast fed and the Shield Coast loyal, if just barely. Even so, trouble brewed thicker than storm clouds. "Lord Reaper," rasped Dagmar Cleftjaw, his malformed grin splitting a beard already silvered with brine. He leaned against the table edge, smelling of pitch and sweat. Sentries report 24 Tyrell long galleys anchored beyond Horseshoe Shoal. Redwine's own wine casks float up the tide. They've anchored there long enough to drink half their holds dry. Theon studied the little wooden tokens dotting the shoals. A tiny stuffed rose dabbed with green paint for each galley. Any sign of bannermen in full muster? One banner we could spy, Dagmar said. Golden rose quartered with a silver wing, House Peak's flight from Starpike. Peak Knights know these waters better than Old Town fishwives, Theon muttered. They mean to soften us before Redwine's beak rams home. He tapped the map. Dispatch Foam Fong and Tide Runner north around Rook's Nose. Cut them off from fresh water. If we starve their stores of river flow, their sailors will grow thirsty and restless. Dagmar nodded, then lowered his voice. And what of your father's summons? Theon stiffened. 2 days earlier, a raven with salt-stiff quills had delivered Balan's terse command. Come to Pike at once. Council of Captains required. Leave shields in trusted hands. He breathed in candle smoke and damp. I cannot abandon the coast when Tyrell banners blot the sea. Balan Greyjoy calls. Dagmar reminded him. Ignore that, and every captain born o' salt will brand you oathbreaker. Theon's jaw flexed. I will answer, he said at last, but not alone. He turned toward the window slit where gulls wheeled in gray sky. I ride with hostages of my own, vassals and reach thralls ready to bargain. Father wants Moat Caelan. Fine. He may keep his ambition, but he will bargain with me, not break me. Stark pups won't like a kraken dangling hostages, nor would they like Tyrell steel at their backs. Theon rolled the chart, tying it with braided hemp. We hold the shields because we anticipate threats before they strike. He strode toward the stairs, ready a ship for Pike. The journey across the straits tested every shove of oar. Swirling winter currents bucked against hulls like angry stallions, and the wind changed direction hourly, as though guided by capricious gods. Theon sailed aboard Seasong with a bare crew of 30 seasoned men and a single envoy from House Oscry, a Reach Knight captured at Oakenshield who had since accepted service under new lordship. Sir Brynden Oscry bore the scars of his surrender, missing 2 fingers and an ear, but his mind remained keen, his words measured. His presence, Theon hoped, might demonstrate to Balan that not all conquered foes need be corpses. Yet as Pike's black towers rose jagged on the horizon, Theon felt the weight of home tilt inside him like shifting ballast. Each barnacle-crusted stone, each rope bridge festooned with seaweed, whispered memories of boyhood. Salted crusts shared with Yara atop wind-slashed battlements, Balan's harsh lessons whispered over crashing surf. The sea forgives nothing, boy. Fail her and she feeds on you. The water gate creaked as Seasong entered the harborage. The docks buzzed with activity. Dozens of new longships under construction, keels acid-etched with squid ink runes, barrels of pitch stacked like black eggs. Ironborn raiders in boiled leather tossed axes at driftwood targets while priest acolytes intoned hymns to the drowned god. The entire island smelled of war. Yara met him at the pier, arms folded, eyes sharp. Brother, she greeted, voice half fond, half cautious. You come bearing Northman raven feathers? And practical counsel, he answered. Where's father? Sulking in the seastone chair, waiting to hear who breaks first, the north or the reach. She gestured inland. Come. He's gathered captains. Inside Pike's great hall, a chill wind prowled between sagging banners. Balan Greyjoy sat rigid as a masthead, gaunt face drawn into lines of flint beneath iron crown. On benches flanking him lounged captains of each isle. Christopher Botley rubbing tar from fingernails, Horace Harlaw twirling a quill like a stiletto, Carl the maid leaning on spear with bored expression. They fell quiet as Theon approached. Balan watched him kneel. Back from your green garden, I see. I bring tidings, Theon said, rising. Redwine's fleet musters. They intend to retake the shields. Let them come, barked Gerold Goodbrother. Their grapes will stain the surf red. Redwine's casks row faster than his soldiers, scoffed Botley. Theon ignored the jeers. We hold the shields with half their numbers. If Tyrell and Redwine strike in force, we will bleed. He set his scroll tube on the long oak table, unfurled the chart. Unless we break them first, Balon's eyes narrowed. Speak. Theon outlined his plan. Feign weakness by allowing minor Tyrell victories on Greenshield beaches. Lure their main fleet into Horseshoe Shoal's narrow crescent. There, submerged spike rams anchored in lee currents would spear keels, while longships launched from coves behind would strike with fire arrows and scorpions. In chaos, hidden scary garrisons would land behind Tyrell siege camps, severing supply lines. The Reach Lords expect straightforward defense, Theon concluded. Give them subterfuge, and their pride will drown. Murmurs spiraled around the table. Harris Harlaw's quill stilled. Ambitious, he said softly, and risky. Shoal tides shift every fortnight. Misjudge afoot, and Ironborn hulls impale too. But succeed, Carl observed, and the Tyrells will limp home half their fleet gone, leaving the Reach ripe for raids. Balon closed his eyes as though tasting salt on wind. When he opened them, he nodded. We test this plan. Victarion will lead. No, Theon interjected before he could silence impulse. I know the shoals better than Victarion. I've lived there, charted every reef. Give me command. A hush fell so heavy one could hear smoke hiss on torches. Balon's fingers drummed the armrest. You ask much, banished son. Yara's eyebrows twitched, but she said nothing. Theon forced calm. When I bent knee to the north, you named me traitor. Yet I held the shields against 2 invasions, fed Pike with grain. Now let deeds outweigh grudges. Balon glanced at captains. Some nodded, others frowned. Finally he spoke. Command is yours if you appease 2 conditions. First, you pledge the shields to House Greyjoy, unconditionally, not as Northern Protectorate. Theon bristled. The North supplies. The North drifts like flotsam in lion storms. Balon cut in. Their word is gusty as a child's breath. Sparks of anger flared, but Theon swallowed them. The shields remain Greyjoy territory. Balon's thin smile didn't reach his eyes. Second, you bring me Moat Cailin. Once Tyrell threat is crushed, you march overland, seize the neck. The hall hummed with suppressed excitement. Eyes darted between father and son. Theon felt Yara's gaze like a dagger of warning. He weighed options. Refusal meant forfeiting command and possibly his life. Acceptance meant betraying Robb Stark. Yet he saw a narrow possibility. Capture Moat Cailin, hold it, but broker a treaty to return it for concessions. A tightrope, but Storms forgave no balance lost. I will deliver Moat Cailin, he said above the hush. Balon's fist slammed the chair arm. So sworn, he turned to Victarion. Give my son Iron Victory, Shrike, and 20 more. Sail on New Moon. Make the Reach weep. Victarion's stone face betrayed no resentment. He simply nodded. As you command. Theon exhaled, knuckles white on table edge. He had secured both the chance to defend his islands and keep father's trust. But the cost would come due soon, paid in direwolf loyalty or Kraken blood. Preparations consumed the next 8 days. Tar cauldrons boiled night and day. Oars were planed to sleek perfection. Submerged spike rams fashioned from felled ironwood trunks were coated in pitch and towed by shallow draft barges toward Horseshoe Shoal under cover of fog. Yara oversaw their placement, diving in cold surf herself to check alignment. On the 9th dusk, the fleet raised sails. 30 Ironborn longships and 8 captured Reach cogs painted Kraken black departed Pike in 3 waves to avoid suspicion, scattering across the brightening spring seas before converging near Old Wyke, then arrowing south. Theon stood on Iron Victory's prow beside Victarion, wind whipping salt into hair. You steer bold course, Victarion remarked, eyes scanning horizon. Father sets heavy weight on your shoulders. Our shoulders, Theon corrected. I succeed, your name lifts with mine. Victarion grunted non-committal. Beware double tides. Shield's currents twist under full moon. I've studied every pull. Nevertheless, anxiety gnawed. He banished it behind confidence, a shield forged in hostage years. The fleet reached Horseshoe Shoal 2 nights before new moon. Fog clung to water like mourner's cloth. Waves slithered through submerged spikes, each trunk's iron tip shearing froth in ominous hush. Scouts and coracles reported Tyrell patrols for miles out. sailing lazy circles as though lulled by what they mistook for calms. At dawn, Theon launched the feint. 3 captured cogs under white banners of truce approached Tyrell watch galleys, masts askew, decks littered with straw figures painted pale and spattered with pig blood. Flags of surrender drooped, shreds of Kraken banners dangled. The Tyrells approached with caution, crossbowmen at rails. At 50 paces they hailed. Straw corpses offered no reply. Sensing easy plunder, they boarded. With flint sparks, the concealed incendiary pots erupted. Wildfire stolen long ago from King's Landing black markets. Green flame gouged across decks, catching pitch seams. Screams followed as 2 brave sailors flailed in burning slime. On distant bluffs, Ironborn horns howled. The main fleet burst from sea caves like dark storm clouds, sails unfurling black and gold. The trap moyonned, Tyrell outriders scattered, but Theon's longships herded them inward toward the spiked shoal. A dozen galleys veered left, straight into treacherous sandbars where tides sucked at keels. Others tacked right, only to find Ironborn hulls hemming exit. The largest Tyrell flagship, Arbor Crown, careened sideways, her rudder ripped by hidden trunk. Water flooded hold, listing her into path of Shrike's ram. The crash splintered oak, spilled men into roiling sea. Smoke thickened, arrows rained. Steel clanged across rails as Ironborn hopped deck to deck, axes reaping. Sir Ardwell Peak rallied 3 galleys into shield wall, but burning masts toppled, crushing resolve. By sundown, 21 Tyrell ships lay gutted or burning. Survivors fled south, sails aflutter like dying moths. On the blood-slicked deck of the captured Arbor Crown, Theon strode among prisoners. Sir Ardwell, wounded and bound, glared through helmet slits. "Butchers," he croaked.
War winners, Theon replied.
He knelt, wiping gore on Peak's own velvet sleeve. "Carry words home. The shields remain Kraken-bound. Any who test them will learn the shoal's teeth sharpened." He rose. "Release him. Little survivors carry bigger tales than corpses." Victarion observed, silent approval in his gaze. Theon sensed respect forging between them, tentative, but steel-strong once tempered by each shared battle. That dawn, Ironborn ships sailed back toward Greenshield flying banners of victory. Kraken entwined with scythed roses dripping scarlet paint. Small folk on cliff villages watched in hush as prisoners disembarked. None executed, only ransomed for future use. And for the first time, some Reach peasants whispered that perhaps the Kraken Lord offered more surety than distant Tyrell nobles who supped in marble keeps while villages burned. Ravens bearing victorious parchment raced to Pike and beyond, to Bear Island, Deepwood Motte, White Harbor. Robb Stark received one such scroll at his increasingly embattled camp near Duskendale. Surrounded by Lannister probing forces under Ser Adam Marbrand, he read Theon's account beneath a flickering torch. Lord Theon Greyjoy repelled the Tyrell Redwine fleet, he mused aloud. The Shield coast stands. Ser Edmure Tully, nursing a bandaged arm from skirmish, raised a brow. When krakens keep promises, perhaps fish grow wings. Robb smiled despite exhaustion. Sometimes fish do fly. He turned to Lord Bolton's bastard Rooses. Son, no scratch. Probably Robb's counsel includes Roose Bolton father. Lord Bolton, dispatch ravens. Our southern sea lanes remain open. With the shield secure, we can risk sending grain to Crackclaw and harry the city's walls. Bolton's pale eyes slit. And what of his father's intent on Moat Cailin? We'll cross that causeway when we reach it, Robb answered. Back on Greenshield, victory celebrations lasted 3 nights. Bonfires roaring along black beaches, barrels of Reach wine uncorked, reels danced to seabone flutes. Theon walked among them, sharing cups, slapping backs, yet never letting the mask slip. He remained vigilant, aware that goodwill is as fickle as tide. He kept a patrol rotation on full watch, nets strung across inlets, ravens prepped for Pike and Winterfell both. On the 4th morning, hung over mist-shrouded fort, Yara's raven landed on his window, message bound in sodden twine. Father sails at dawn with 3,000 spears for the neck. Theon cursed. Balon wasted no breath to confirm Tyrell defeat. He simply advanced next gambit. That meant Theon's promise of delivering Moat Cailin had matured sooner than hoped. He summoned Dagmar, Vetrick Saltmead, and Maester Torin. "We march within the fortnight," he announced, unrolling north maps. "Victarion remains to hold shields. We will muster 800 hardened raiders, enough to take the causeway towers by stealth before Balon's main host crosses the marsh." "Stark outriders patrol the causeway," Torin warned. "We strike at night through the dead marsh trails Ironborn know," Theon said. "But we will not butcher Stark men. We will occupy, send herald to Robb proposing exchange. Moat Cailin for formal acknowledgement of shield sovereignty under Greyjoy vassalage." Dagmar scratched chin. "Balon expects trophies, not treaties." "Balon expects results," Theon replied. "He receives them with added terms. Tread careful," he told himself. "One misstep, and wolves, lions, and krakens all tear you apart." The crossing into the neck proved as treacherous as tales foretold. Endless causeways half-submerged in black water, reeds taller than men, and biting midges that turned faces to welted maps of misery. Theon's raiders moved by night, boats bottom-scraped to reduce draft. Hushed paddles parted lily-choked channels where ghost lights flickered, marsh gases catching moon. Scouts scaled the crumbling stone towers of Moat Cailin's outer ring without sound. Guards they found were Northmen but few, skeleton garrison under a minor Glover cousin. At the hour of the wolf Theon's men cut bowstrings, bound slumbering watchmen, and flooded the main courtyard before alarm could stir properly. By sunrise, Kraken banners unfurled on ramparts overlooking Nino's causeway. Not one northerner dead, injured but spared. Theon stood atop the south tower parapet, surveying gray expanse of swamp and the distant glint of morning sun off spear points. Balon's army approaching along causeway miles away, a black-blue snake slithering through golden reeds. Smoke from their cookfires rose. He exhaled. This was the pivot. He ordered a raven to Balon, Moat Cailin taken. Await parley to coordinate occupation. A second raven to Robb, hold to your word and I hold to mine. Meet me at Moat Cailin's southern yard. We must speak before father arrives. Then he waited, heart drumming. Balon's vanguard reached Moat Cailin by dusk. Iron men flooded the edges while Theon greeted his father in the shadow of battered towers. Balon dismounted, eyes scanning for blood. "Where are the slain?" he demanded. "No blood spilt," Theon replied. "Garrison surrendered." Balon sneered. "You robbed our men of salt pay. I preserved men for future battles." Balon stepped closer, voice cold. "Weakness reeks from deeds unblooded. Our strength lies in holding, not slaughtering," Theon insisted. "Robb Stark marches east. He'll need this causeway back eventually. We set terms that profit us." Balon jabbed a finger toward North Gate. "I need no wolf's coin. The neck is ours by right of iron." Theon clenched fists. "Wolves still bite. They'll not forget your ironfall." "Let them choke," Balon spat. He pivoted, barking commands to his captains. "Fortify ramparts. Burn the wolf banners." Yara, who had flanking father's entourage, met Theon's gaze with silent caution. She mouthed careful. Night cloaked the moat in damp hush. Theon walked ramparts alone until a shadow materialized. Robb Stark in dark cloak, 2 guards behind him. Gray wind prowled at heel, hackles half-raised but not hostile. They slipped through a sally port Yara had discreetly left unlatched. Robb eyed the Ironborn banners. "You hold your end," he conceded. "For now," Theon said. "But Balon will not relinquish. We need compromise before dawn." Robb's jaw worked. "I cannot concede territory to Reavers. Then concede governance. Allow an Ironborn garrison to collect passage tolls under northern oversight. The causeway remains open, but coin flows to great white coffers. Balon keeps pride, you keep road." Robb considered. "Tolls on my own soil? Better tolls than burnt lands," Theon pressed. "Tyrell fleet regroups. Lannisters gather cell sails. Winter comes. Secure Moat Cailin without losing men to sea or marsh. Footsteps echoed on stone behind. Yara emerged, cloak hooded. She glanced at Robb, then Theon. "Father Titan's noose," she murmured. "He will declare the neck new kingdom by dawn feast. If he speaks first, words burn into iron." Robb's eyes narrowed. "And you? I want my people fed," Yara said truth plain. "Stubborn ghost of old ways starves us." Silence stretched. Frogs croaked in dark lilies below. Robb exhaled. "I'll agree to temporary toll governance 1 year. After we renegotiate, Moat Caelan fortifications remain in my control." Theon clasped forearm. "Deal." They parted into shadows. Dawn approached like an executioner. Morning sun painted the marsh in gold as Balan convened captains within Moat Caelan's moss-swallowed keep. He raised a goblet of nightshade ale, proclaimed the neck rightful dominion of Kralky's asterisk, typo,